welcome back to our homestead. Today I'm going to be making schmaltz. What is schmaltz? Schmaltz is a fancy word for rendered chicken fat. It can be goose fat, chicken fat. In my case, I have a lovely bag here of chicken fat that we have harvested from our broilers a couple of days ago. In my language, it's called kuryny Смалец. That's how Mama called it. Смалец means schmaltz or rendered fat. Kuryny means from a chicken. So we love to utilize as many things from an animal as possible. You have seen me guys make a very lovely chicken bone broth using chicken carcasses, making a very rich, gelatinous, thick and beautiful, nutritious bone broth using chicken feet, chicken legs, chicken feet. And then I also made some chicken pate using chicken livers, and it came out unbelievable. So today I'm going to be rendering some fat as well because it's highly nutritious and it can be made shelf stable. That will be stored on a cool shelf in my basement, and then whenever I need to cook with it, I'll use it for cooking. You can fry potatoes on it, you can roast chicken on it, whatever you want to use it really, because it's so good and it has a very mild flavor. Plus I like to honor the animal by using as many things from the animal as possible. So I'm gonna need chicken liver today, a sharp knife, because I'm going to be storing it in jars. I have pine jars here and I'm going to wash them and I'm going to sterilize them, but making sure that they are sterilized and very dry. So I'm going to sterilize them by drying them in the oven, because you don't want to mix fat with water. It's going to go rancid. So it has to be as dry as possible. And then I'm going to do everything, rendering portion of it, I'm going to do it in my cast iron or Dutch oven pot. Or if you don't have one of those, just use anything with thick bottom pot, okay? And that's pretty much it. So I think I want to weigh it to make sure to know how much by weight, how many jars it will take. All right, so let's get going. All right, so I'm just gonna keep it here, and I have a scale and I just zeroed it. I want to see how much I have. So I have three and a half pounds, about 3.5 pounds, close to 3.5 pounds. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to cut them all up into a manageable size, because right now there are different kind of size fats, okay? So by the way, this fat can come not just from a chicken when you slaughter it yourself, when you harvest it yourself, but also when you buy chicken at the store and there will be pieces of fat inside. You can always pull that out, put it in a freezer bag and freeze it until you have a little pile collected, and then you can render it yourself. Or if you are cooking with chicken skin, you buy chicken that has skin on it, very often there will be a lot of fat right under the skin. All right, so you can also use that as well. So schmaltz is a widely used word in Eastern European Jewish population, because when they came here to the United States, they obviously brought their recipes with them, their words, and that's what they call foods here as well. So schmaltz and Smalec are, I think, the same word. It's probably depends on the region that it comes from. It's pronounced differently. Mama called it Smalec. And Mama always had a jar of Smalec right next to the stove, whether it was made from a pig, because we raised pigs and we always had fat from our pigs, or from chickens, because we also raised chickens and we had chicken fat. Again, listen, oh, this one, I don't like this piece, so I'm just gonna set it aside. It has a piece of bone in it. I don't want a piece of bone. I don't know how that got in there. So you don't have to, guys, use just chicken fat pieces. Like I said, you can be used under the chicken skin. If you guys like to buy chicken thighs with the skin on and the bone in, very often there will be a lot of fat on it. So that's also a great way to strip it off and save it in a freezer bag until the time comes when you have a big pile. And then you can render it and make yourself a really, really nice fat. All right. All right, I'm just gonna keep cutting everything. You may ask, what is the chicken fat so good? Why should I even bother, right? Well, besides the really good flavor, chicken fat, rendered fat, is high in biotin, just like the chicken skin. And biotin, as you guys know, is good for your skin, for your bones, for your hair, for your nail health, but also it increases metabolism. All right, so for unhealthy metabolism, it speeds up the metabolism. It has, even though it has some cholesterol, I will not lie, I mean, come on, it's animal fat, but it's also high in unsaturated fat, which is very healthy for us. Okay, so people who are on ketogenic diet, this fat is great, and it can be used even as a spread instead of butter. So for those who cannot tolerate butter because of the dairy portion of it, chicken fat is really, really good. But I really like how Mama used to boil some potatoes, use some of that rendered fat from chicken fat, Smalec, and she used to caramelize slices of onion, and then put that as like a gravy over boiled potatoes. And guess what? That was the dinner. Growing up in a former Soviet Union, and it wasn't that long ago, by the way, not that long ago at all, and I'm not that old. So yeah, that was our dinner. Mama would boil a pot of potatoes, white potatoes, because we didn't have sweet potatoes at that time in former Soviet Union, and just make that really nice gravy using onions and using Schmaltz. So sometimes if it was made from pig skin, sometimes then those tiny little pieces from that will crumble after it's cooked, you know, that little crispy crumble, she would spread that on top of the potatoes as well, and it was really, really good surprise whoever got that on their potato. Okay, so I chopped everything up. Now let's go into rendering mode. Okay, so I have a nice little pile of chicken fats here that I chopped up. I'm just gonna put into my Dutch oven, or if you have cast iron as well, and if you don't have any of those, just any pot with thick bottom would work. And I'm gonna turn it on the heat to probably medium high, because I don't want to brown this necessarily. I just want to start melting it. I'm not going to add any water because my chicken fat pieces were washed in the water a few times after I slaughtered the chicken. So they're already wet. I'm not going to add any more water. I want this water actually to evaporate and only the chicken fat melt, render. And when everything is rendered, I'll show you that process again. But I'm going to be stirring it once in a while so nothing sticks to the bottom, nothing burns. And in the meanwhile, I need to wash my hands, of course, and I need to start washing my jars. Almost forgot. Yesterday when I made the bone broth, there was a lot of fat collected on the top. So I skimmed it off and I put it in the fridge. Now look at all this fat. I'm also going to put it into my rendering fat as well. This is all that was on the top of the chicken broth. I skimmed it off, put it in the fridge, and it solidified. Isn't that cool? So I need to add it here as well. All right, so I washed 4 jars, 4-pint jars. I'm not sure if I'm gonna need all of them, but I washed them and I put them in the oven, and I turned the heat on to 220, and I'm going to, until it comes to a temperature, and I'm going to keep them there for another 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, until they completely dry, and that's how they're going to be disinfected. In the meantime, look at this. It's rendering nicely. Can you see that golden, beautiful color? Yeah, look at that. That is rendered chicken fat. Yes, ma'am. It's going to be wonderful. All All right, so I'm just gonna stir, make sure nothing is stuck to the bottom, and I turn the heat all the way down to the lowest setting because I want this to reduce slowly. Okay, so melt slowly, all right? Okay, friends, so this has been cooking for about 12-15 minutes, about that, and seems like everything has already dissolved, and what's left over, that's actually pieces of meat that was together with fat, and all the fat has dissolved. Pieces of skin, they kind of just released everything as far as the fat from it. And the timer just went off. It's been 10 minutes of my jars sterilizing in the oven. So I'm going to take them out. They should be nice and hot, and completely dry. All right, I need to start filling up my jars, and very important that you work with everything super clean and dry. So I'm gonna have my funnel here, and I'm gonna be using this metal sieve strainer. So in case there's any pieces of, my husband is doing construction in the house. I hear a bunch of hammering going on. So, oh, let me grab a little plate. I don't want to drip anything anywhere. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently, very carefully fill up my jars. Remember, the jars are also hot because they just came from the oven, okay? So it's very important that they go into a very hot container, because chicken fat, Schmaltz, Smalec, whatever you want to call it, can be cooked and does not burn at very high temperatures. So that's one of the beauties of cooking with it on a high temperatures. It will not burn. All right, so I'm going to fill them up pretty much almost to the top, maybe not all the way to the top, maybe like half an inch head space. All right, I'm going to keep filling them up. All right, so I am not going to process these jars, not at all. Instead, I'm going to show you the processing of old school, the way it was done in my mama's time. I don't know if it's approved by the American Canning Association, and it's really my method. This is what I do. I'm not going to pressure can it. I'm not going to water bath can it. None of that. Instead, I'm gonna do the blanket bath, just like my mama used to do, okay? Just like that. Very simple. So I may have 3 jars of this. I will show you how simple it will be to make it. All right, so let me just keep filling this up. My whole kitchen smells like as if I'm cooking chicken. It smells so good. All right, so it didn't take long to render this at all. Maybe 15 minutes, if that. Yeah, about 15 minutes probably. Because by the time I washed the jars and sterilized them for 10 minutes, it probably took about 15 minutes altogether. So it's not long. But it's really nice to have this nutritious fat, shelf stable, to be on your shelves to cook with. All right, if you guys like my old-fashioned recipes or methods, cooking from scratch, preserving food, I guys encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I think that's pretty much it. All right, so I'm just gonna, that's pretty much it when it comes to all the fat. So I'm going to cover them now. Again, make sure the lids and the rings are super dry and clean, because we don't want any moisture in here. And right now it seems like it's liquid, but eventually it's going to become nice and thick, just like lard. Okay, friends, and now I will show you the processing in the blanket, just like my mama used to do. So I have this nice thick blanket that I put on the counter, and I layered a little towel on top. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move my jars onto that towel just like this, and I'm gonna put them right next to each other just like this, okay? I'm gonna throw another towel, right on top, and then I'm gonna cover everything with the blanket. And it's going to stay like this covered for about 24 hours till tomorrow. And then tomorrow, I'm going to take them out, and by then they will cool down and they will be ready for long-term storage. Okay friends, so this is how I render fat. Last fall I rendered pig fat from our pigs, made a really nice homemade lard, and I've been cooking with it and been using it, and it's super good. And now I made some rendered chicken fat as well. So friends, don't shy away from learning some old-fashioned recipes, methods of food preservation. If you guys are learning something, I appreciate if you leave me a comment, subscribe, share with your friends and family. So on this note, friends, I hope you stay encouraged and try something new.